Okay, so my kid needs an apron. My sibling could use an apron. Let's try and see if we can make that work. Okay, so I've got a project that I've been working on that is probably objectively perfectly manageable, but feels really unmanageable at this point, right? So, hey sweetheart, Opal's on my belly. So we're gonna try something different. Fabric. Anyway, so I've got, whoa, a sheet, stripy sheet, and this is the first attempt at an apron, because this is the one my kid wants. Opal, get off the fabric. And other fabric that can be other apron, that can be a gift, right? Hopefully. We'll see. This is me, so of course there's no pattern involved, right? Also, sheets are friggin' enormous. I guess we could get a whole nother stripy apron out of it, or maybe I want a shirt. I don't know. Anyway, that'll be something else for another day. Behold, Rabbit Disaster Zone is dress. That is, sheet is folded in half, dress is laid out on the half line. I think the armpit scoop for the apron ought to come down to where the waist tie hits on here. Neckline about maybe a little bit lower than that. The slope on the shoulder strap is important, and it can be a little longer. We have a neckline, we have a shoulder strap, we have an armhole. I folded it over and cut the other side of the armhole matchy-matchy and the top of the strap matchy-matchy. And then I'm going to cut from the very bottom a curve up to that point. Just random eyeballed curve, of course, but I'll show it to you. Alright, here's what the curve I went with looks like. Kicked out and then back in again. You can modify yours accordingly. Here's strips, because very simple, very quick seams, and then rather an infinite quantity of binding. Okay, so a crossback apron. So you take the, I don't know, shape we just cut out, and you could hold it up and look at it and say, oh yes, if this was a shirt, this shoulder would go to this shoulder. And then you sew them to the wrong shoulders. And then, if you choose to bind the edges instead of hemming them, which you could totally do, then it is actually one insane Moebius strip of binding all the way around. So if you chose to use, say, a ribbon or something for binding, it would be one very long piece, which is kind of cool. Also, this is sometimes referred to as a Japanese style apron. Now, tried to research it. I only have one book on specifically on traditional Japanese clothing, and that is a book on clothing specific to Japanese immigrants in Hawaii in the, I think 1940s or 60s. And it's absolutely fascinating from a practical clothing perspective, but nonetheless, it does not deal with kitchen aprons. Now, based on my understanding, the Japanese style one would be, rather than the curvy shape we cut here, would be a rectangle that goes around the body, and two more rectangles forming the shape, the cross in the back shape, which would make sense given, traditional Japanese clothing and narrow widths of fabric that are used in very inventive ways, and very much rectangular sewing tradition for the most part. So that would be a good use for rectangles and scrap fabric too. Now this will be fun to patch, because this one is my child's, and I expect she will be using it for things like mushroom gathering in addition to baking. And I will have to do lots of mending on it, and it will become more beautiful with each of those. So, there's nothing exciting to see here. Just the one long Mabus strip of binding. And then it would be officially done, or we'll add a pocket to it, and of course I'm adding pockets to it, especially if my kid's going to take it mushroom gathering. Alright, it's daytime, so we're on the bed instead of the nasty floor. Rest of sheet, well, most of the rest of the sheet is becoming another apron. As an experiment, because, well, I need to go ahead, know how big I can cut pockets and where I can cut them from. But also, I'm going to cut the arm side, for lack of a better term, even though it goes around your back, wider. And, that'll be the only, that's a lie. I'm going to make it just a little bit longer. A little bit longer and the arm side wider, and that'll be the only change I make, so we can see how it hangs different on people with that one change. So I'm going to, have to scoot this around all goofy to make sure, to line things up because of the Mabus strip situation. Give me a second. Alright, neck is same. Armhole is wider, but because the body of the apron isn't really wider, the curve is not nearly as pronounced. So I'm not going to put the binding on this thing because that took a minute and I want to get the video released, at some point. But I'm going to sew up the shoulders, and then you can see these side by side, and we'll find out if either it's a very forgiving pattern and it doesn't much matter how you cut it out, or it really does matter, and then you can decide which general approach you like better. And then I cut out two simply enormous rectangles to be like front pockets, and then I've got more, not a whole lot, but leftover fabric that I'll have to find a purpose for. Pocket is enormous rectangle with 2 rows of back stitching, and not back stitching, running back stitch, that other thing. Also, other thing has shoulder straps sewn together, and it looks roomier. We shall see. As usual, my child is thrilled to be helping. Put your hands in your pockets, sunshine. Pockets! Now spin in a very slow circle, please. Remember that Calvin and Hobbes comic where Hobbes goes smock, 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 smock? I think that's the vibe I'm getting. But it looks like it will do a very good job as an apron. Okay, I think the rain might be about to start. Well, you spin in a very slow circle. As you can see, this one is much roomier, but also seems to function fine for teeny tiny here. So, the curve on the back's not as dramatic. It's up to you which approach you'd prefer. Again, smock, smock, smock. Will you spin again, my love? Because I was worried it would fall off her shoulders, but it's staying put. All is well. I need to release her, clearly. She's so soft. So, both of the aprons fit me. I could use them both fine. Of course, I enjoy the larger one. Ocean's fine with either. And it's nice to have a simple project. I hope you make some too. It's a very forgiving pattern, and if you don't bind it and just hem it, it probably would go very quickly. Or, if you have a sewing machine or something. So, sending soft, fluffy autumn thoughts, and wishing you a peaceful week.